My name is David Trong, and I am the head of mobile engineering at Iterable. And for ministry, I serve as one of the youth staff here in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. So I think in college, I came in really ambitious. I wanted to triple major in electrical engineering, math, and computer science after I had switched from biomedical engineering. And so I just did a lot. I actually had an internship the summer before I started college at Intel. So I had 4 different internships during college. I had 4 different research projects I'd worked on. I was a TA, took an honors math class that was much too hard for I think anything that anyone should ever take. But I took it anyways, despite my advisor saying, no, you should not take this class, because I just wanted to challenge myself. So I first started coming out to our church after I moved from Seattle to the Bay Area, and I was just looking for a local church. So I found the website online and I walked to church. For me, I was pretty involved in Christian leadership all through high school and college. I was actually the club president at my high school. So I was always pretty involved in church and just always being around with people at my house or just in the church building, just doing stuff. I wanted to do youth ministry to be able to share the gospel with people like that, people who had grown up going to church and perhaps were even serving but didn't quite understand what that meant. Yeah, I started youth ministry with that intention, but actually the people that I met were actually far from what I expected. Mostly because the people that I met weren't typically in the places that you would expect to find church-going folks. And so when I'd go out on bike rides with different students who just constantly be just having just whatever conversations comes up, it would be like if we had a line of a bunch of students, like in cycling, it's called the peloton, where you have this line of people and you have someone who you ride next to someone, you talk to them, and you just kind of cycle back and forth, and that way you just get to talk to everyone. So like when we would finish these bike rides, the ones on Friday nights, we would just end up at wherever we were having Bible study for the night. And I would invite them to say, hey, you guys can either head on home or you guys can come in for dinner and the Bible study. Pretty much everyone took me up on the offer and came and checked it out. They came in for dinner, had a fun time with the games and the Bible study, and that was the first time that they ever heard the Bible. So over the course of those years in youth ministry, I was able to bike with a couple dozen students that, I don't think would ever have stepped foot in a church if it weren't for just going out there and meeting them. And kind of one picture that was a major turning point for me was when I got a phone call from one of the students, and he said, hey, David, sorry, I haven't been responding this past few weeks. I actually just got out of rehab for attempted suicide. And when I heard that, I remember my heart dropping, because that put everything into perspective. Like all that I'm doing in ministry, this is who Jesus calls us to reach out to, right? The harassed and helpless, the sheep without a shepherd. And I remember thinking, well, what is worth my time and energy, right? If a soul lasts for eternity, what better way to spend my life than there is to be able to reach out to people and really share with them the good news of the gospel. I remember regularly after coming home from all of the excitement of youth ministry, walking into my room and lying on the floor and falling asleep until morning. And that was a regular occurrence for at least the first couple months. I was just so exhausted because it was so different from my regular schedule, but I wanted to be available for these kids. The first big tension was the fact that I was working in the gaming industry. I mean, this is the job, it was a dream job for a lot of people, and that's actually the reason why I moved from Seattle down to the Bay Area was for this job in the gaming industry. But as I started doing ministry, there was a handful of students who became Christian. But they ended up stopped coming to church because they were just addicted to games. They would just play for hours on end and just neglected coming out anymore. That was pretty troubling for me. I wanted to be able to speak truth into their lives of, hey, maybe you shouldn't play so much games and kind of think about the bigger picture of life. And so for me, I really wanted to be a minister without any hindrances. What that meant was if I wanted to be able to tell them, hey, you shouldn't play so much games, while I'm the one that's making those games. The big decision that I chose was to actually leave that job. I didn't necessarily know where I was going to go next in terms of a job, but I really felt the conviction of I want to be an effective minister of the gospel, because at the end of the day, that's the most important truth, right? That people hear and understand the gospel, because yeah, it has infinite impact. Yeah, I decided to leave the gaming industry as a result of that. So I think if anyone puts all of their time and energy into something, they're gonna get it in one form or another. Right? If you invest all of your time and energy into making money or your career, it's going to be successful to some extent, but it comes at a cost. The cost I paid for ministry was actually willing to set the priority of my career and success to a lesser extent. I didn't have to be so successful in those other areas, because I wanted to devote more time and energy to ministry, because that's what I found as the most valuable thing that I could give someone else. And so do I regret it? Like all of the time that I spent not investing in my career? Not a bit. I'm actually very vocal about that. I'm actually very forward with that. When I talk to my bosses, that's actually the main topic that comes up, is like priorities, right? I mean, everyone, talks about work-life balance, but like this is actually tangibly being able to live that out, right? And yeah, when you focus on that which is most important, you're not going to feel like you missed out on anything else.